We do have a team of reporters working on all angles of this breaking story, so let's begin with ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl in the Live Center with an update. Derek.
Well, good evening. Lawmakers and Capitol staff are beginning to return to the building. Right here you can see photos of staff carrying the mahogany boxes that contain the Electoral College certificates. There was concern when the mob stormed the building that these certificates might get burned. They had to grab the boxes and evacuate them. The boxes are now safe, and they're going to continue their work certifying the election. Meantime, there's a lot of damage inside the building. This is new video showing rioters inside the building setting off fire extinguishers. There's a lot of broken glass and other sorts of vandalism. Here's a look back at how it all started. The scenes of chaos outside America's symbol of democracy started around 11 a.m. Pacific. Pro-Trump demonstrators pushed past barricades and Capitol Police. As some smashed their way through windows, security forces took up positions with guns drawn. At one point, a woman wearing Trump gear was shot and later died. Inside the House chamber, lawmakers took cover in the gallery behind seats. Some even donned gas masks as police deployed tear gas to try to disperse the mob. By 11:30 a.m., the Capitol and two nearby buildings were in lockdown, and an armed standoff had begun. Shortly after 1 p.m., President Trump released a recorded message calling for his supporters to go home.
We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt.
And tonight, Twitter has actually removed that video and two other messages from the president. Twitter saying they violated the platform's policies. The president had referred to the rioters as great patriots. Twitter has actually suspended the president's account for 12 hours and is threatening to permanently suspend his account if he continues to violate their platform's policies. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
Derek, thank you. And a little more than what Derek was just talking about with President Trump releasing that taped statement from earlier today addressing the protesters before telling them to go home. It's important to remember he continued to make false statements about winning the election.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Again, one woman was shot and killed today. President-elect Joe Biden also addressed the situation at the Capitol today and demanded for the chaos to end.
Let me be very clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are. What we're seeing are a small number of extremists dedicated to lawlessness. This is not dissent. It's disorder. It's chaos. It borders on sedition. And it must end now.
We are hearing from some local lawmakers who were at the Capitol when the chaos unfolded. ABC 10 News reporter Mimi Alcala is joining us now. And Mimi, you just spoke with Congressman Juan Vargas, who says he's been told to shelter in place, but is trying to get back to work.
Yeah, he is, Kimberly. So I spoke to him about an hour ago, and he is still sheltering in place with his staff members. He described to me the chaotic scene as protesters stormed the building, and he told me that he was actually ready to fight if needed.
I looked around, and my staff got these flag sticks, and we said, you know what, if they break into where we are, we'll fight back. I mean, they've got weapons. We went to another secure location here at the Capitol complex. We think it's secure, we don't know. Then you hear people running down the halls, screaming. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And you couldn't tell if they were police officers or they were, rioters. I mean, you just couldn't tell. It was shocking.
Vargas tells me he is angry. He ran into his office to check on his staff at that time, and they all sheltered in place. But he told me while he was out walking by the Supreme Court yesterday, he did see people arriving and some were carrying weapons, including guns. He says he was concerned and he knows a lot about Capitol security because he used to be on the House administration, which is in charge of the police. So he says he reported what he saw to Capitol Police and was told they were going to be prepared. He says today he does not believe they were.
I think that they were ill prepared. If this had been Black Lives Matter coming, I mean, they would have had the National Guard there. They would have had tanks. They would have had Marines and everything else. They thought, oh, it's the Trumpsters. These guys will be fine. They're not going to do anything. No. I mean, these guys are armed.
And Vargas did tell me he does want to get back to work as soon as possible. We also heard from other San Diego representatives who all said they are safe and sheltering in place. Mimi Alcala, ABC 10 News.
Thank you, Mimi. And questions about how the Capitol building was breached are being asked tonight. ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer Kastner is joining us. Jen, you just spoke to a former San Diego police SWAT commander who described SDPD's training exercises for these type of events.
Yes, Kimberly, he says that SDPD is constantly running these training drills in anticipation of potentially violent and chaotic situations like this. There were reports tonight of demonstrators shoving aside barricades and pushing past police as they swarmed and breached the Capitol building. I spoke to former San Diego Police SWAT Commander Ray Shea a short while ago about the standard law enforcement protocol for handling a matter like this. He said that law enforcement can de-escalate to a certain point, but he said there has to be a point at which there is command and control where law enforcement must make the decision to defend security through a variety of means, whatever means available to stop entry. Shea says it's imperative that law enforcement have no surprises, that they pre-plan for every possibility, which he said SDPD does.
I know that the San Diego Police Department does frequent mobile field force training and practice to where they actually put items on a table and they say, if this crowd does this, what will you as the sergeant, lieutenant, commander, assistant chief, what is your direction? And they practice those.
And we have more tonight on ABC 10 News at 6 p.m. about the means available for law enforcement to stop breaches like this. Reporting live tonight, Jennifer Kastner, ABC 10 News.
Certainly we'll talk about in the days and weeks to come. Thank you, Jennifer. And joining us now to talk about today's events is law professor Craig Barkas from the University of San Diego. Craig, after the events at the nation's capital today, there is talk tonight about civics as well. How are legal and political systems supposed to work?
Yes, it seems like there's maybe a broad misunderstanding of how our system works, how it works politically. Today's event, for example, was simply really a ritual or a ceremony. This election has already been resolved, so there was no way for there to be any change in terms of the outcome. And then from another perspective, we need to understand how our judiciary works. We take our conflicts to the courtroom, and where both sides have a chance to present their arguments, and the court rules. That's how civilized nations operate, and what we saw today really fell short of a civilized society.
And you're currently teaching students who will one day practice law, maybe go into politics. What are you teaching after what transpired today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just coincidentally, the class I'm currently teaching, in fact, it convenes tonight. It's called Conflict Diagnosis and Dispute Resolution. And the whole purpose of the class is to recognize that the conflict is inevitable, but how we approach that conflict matters. And then when disputes arise, how are we going to resolve those disputes? And civil discourse is crucial. Having a basic understanding of the facts is crucial. And unless people really take time to listen to one another, people have misperceptions, they have misunderstandings. And that's when violence breaks out, and that's when the system breaks down.
And certification is going to continue tonight, all of these procedural things between now and January 20th. Anything legally we need to be aware of between now and then?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the fact that it is proceeding this evening. Actually, once this began, it is required to be done within 5 days. But I think legislators from both sides of the aisle wanted to make sure that even though it was disrupted, it would be quickly resumed. The last thing they wanted to let happen was to have the process, in a sense, fall apart. So that's why they're coming back together, to trying to make sure they can do their duty, complete this ceremony, and we move forward to we hope, a peaceful transition of power on January 20th.
A lot to unpack legally and politically. Thank you, Craig Vargas, for your expertise this evening. Dozens of protesters gathered outside the San Diego County Administration building, waving flags and holding signs. ABC 10 News reporter Anthony Pura is joining us now. And Anthony, the protesters have since moved to Santee.
That's right, we are in Santee right now, and more people have started to show up here. I can show you what it looks like behind me here as people have started to line the streets here. This is at the corner of Cuyamaca Street and Mission Gorge Road in Santee. They arrived around 4:30, and some of them said that they were expecting more people to join them, so we're waiting for that. Now, a lot of them had come from that earlier protest that you mentioned of in downtown. I want to show you some of that video. It was outside the county administration building. There were about 200 people at that event. All of this happening, of course, on the same day that Congress was scheduled to ratify the election results. We saw the events at the Capitol. We've been talking about that, and many of the demonstrators downtown saw that as well. I spoke with one of them who said that she was here at this demonstration, the one in downtown, to show support for her party and for the president, that she did not condone what the demonstrators did in D.C.
I'm disheartened. If there are people there that say that they stand on the Republican side and for Trump that are actually breaching the building and doing these things, I say shame on them. They don't stand for what I stand for or the Republicans that I know.
And back out here live again, this is in Santee, corner of Cuyamaca Street and Mission Gorge Road. I'm not sure how long this demonstration is expected to last. Don't know how long they'll be out here. They are getting a lot of support from drivers that are driving by and seeing them. We are going to stay out here and bring you more updates throughout the night. We're reporting live tonight in Santee. Anthony Pura, ABC 10 News.
Anthony, thank you. Back to Washington now. Today's violent demonstrations unfolding in the midst of a debate to certify the Electoral College results. Our Scripps national political reporter Joe St. George is joining us from Washington, D.C. And so, Joe, what does this mean for the vote and the history of what we're watching unfold in our country right now?
Well, you know, the history, you know, perhaps it's not being overstated tonight, right? I mean, the reality is that we haven't seen an insurrection at the United States Capitol like we saw earlier today since the War of 1812. That is just history. Those are the facts. And there is going to be a lot of pointing fingers in the days and weeks to come. Perhaps they'll be asking the Capitol Police, why wasn't the building more secure? They'll be asking President Trump, did he contribute in any way to this? And of course, the answer is yes. He was encouraging people to come to Washington for today, and that he is very much their leader. As I was walking along the streets of Capitol, of the nation's capital before this broadcast, every single one of them is wearing Trump-Pence gear. A lot of them feel like they are patriots this evening, and that's important to keep in mind. While a lot of the country is looking at these images and saying, boy, how could this happen? A lot of the people that I saw walking the streets of D.C. this evening believe they did what was right, and that shows just how divided we are in this country. As for what happens next, well, right now a powerful message is being sent in the United States Capitol building, leaders reconvening to certify the Electoral College vote. Vice President Mike Pence saying a short time ago, the Capitol is secure. It almost seems like it was out of a Hollywood movie or something we would see halfway around the world, but it was in our nation and in our nation's capital tonight.
A nation that needs to heal. Joe St. George from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for your time, and we will be right back.